The Middle East, June 1967. The world watches in suspense as Israel, a nation just 19 years old, faces annihilation from all sides. The skies thunder with the sound of warplanes, and armies mass on the borders, preparing for an all-out assault. But in just 6 days, the course of history will change forever. Against all odds, Israel will turn the tide of war and shock the world with one of the most stunning military victories of the 20th century. How did Israel, a small nation outnumbered and outgunned, manage to defeat a coalition of Arab nations in less than a week? What tactics and strategies allowed them to not only survive, but to emerge victorious? This is the story of the Six-Day War, where a nation's very existence hung in the balance, and the fate of the Middle East was forever altered. Welcome to Tales of History.
The Six-Day War didn't happen in a vacuum. To truly understand its origins, we must go back to the deep-rooted conflict between the Arab nations and Israel, hostilities that had been brewing for decades. In 1948, the State of Israel was established following a United Nations plan to partition Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. But this new arrangement was immediately rejected by the Arab League, which included Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia. The day after Israel declared independence, 5 Arab nations invaded, triggering the First Arab-Israeli War. By 1949, the war ended in an armistice, but the bitterness remained. Over 700,000 Palestinians had been displaced, leading to one of the most significant refugee crises in history. For Israel, the war was seen as a miraculous survival. For the Arab nations, it was a humiliating defeat, one they sought to avenge. In the years following, tension simmered. In the early 1950s, Egypt, under the leadership of Gamal Abdel Nasser, emerged as a champion of Arab nationalism. Nasser's goals were twofold: to unite the Arab world against Western influence and to destroy Israel. His vision of pan-Arabism resonated with many across the region, and by 1956, Egypt was firmly in the spotlight after the Suez Crisis. In 1956, Israel, alongside France and Britain, attacked Egypt in response to Nasser's nationalization of the Suez Canal, sparking another major conflict. Though Egypt suffered militarily and politically, Nasser emerged as a hero in the Arab world. He solidified his position as the leader of the anti-Israel movement, fostering alliances with Syria and Jordan, and forming the United Arab Republic with Syria in 1958. By the mid-1960s, the geopolitical situation was extremely volatile. In 1964, Nasser spearheaded the creation of the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, vowing to liberate Palestine through armed struggle. Skirmishes and border incidents between Israel and its neighbors, particularly Syria, had become frequent, and a full-scale conflict seemed inevitable. In early 1967, things reached a tipping point. False Soviet intelligence warned Nasser that Israel was preparing to attack Syria, prompting Egypt to mobilize its forces in the Sinai Peninsula. On May 16, 1967, Nasser ordered the United Nations peacekeeping forces, stationed in the Sinai since the Suez Crisis, to leave. Then, on May 22nd, he took a decisive step. Nasser closed the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping, a move Israel had previously declared would be a casus belli, an act of war. For Israel, this was the final straw. Isolated, surrounded by hostile forces, and with no guarantees of international support, Israel's leadership knew that their survival was at stake. By June 4, 1967, Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol and Defense Minister Moshe Dayan made a fateful decision: Israel would strike first. At dawn on June 5, 1967, Israel launched Operation Focus, a daring preemptive strike aimed at crippling the Arab air forces before they could take to the skies. The Israeli Air Force, using precise intelligence and superior planning, launched nearly all its combat aircraft in a well-coordinated wave of attacks. By the end of the first day, Israel had destroyed 452 Arab aircraft, including 338 Egyptian planes, 60 Syrian planes, and 28 Jordanian planes, most of them while they were still on the ground. Egypt, which had the largest air force in the Arab world, was left defenseless. Within hours, Israel had achieved total air supremacy. This was the war's most decisive moment. Without air cover, the Arab forces were exposed to Israeli ground assaults. The destruction of the Egyptian Air Force was catastrophic. 10,000 Egyptian soldiers were killed and another 20,000 captured by the end of the conflict. On the ground, Israeli forces pushed swiftly into the Sinai Peninsula, advancing over 160 kilometers in just 3 days. Israeli tanks and infantry units, using a combination of speed, surprise and mobility, outflanked and outmaneuvered the much larger Egyptian army. The Egyptians, thrown into chaos and confusion, were forced into a chaotic retreat, many drowning in the Suez Canal as they attempted to escape. On the Eastern Front, the fighting in Jerusalem was intense. The Jordanian army initially had the advantage, shelling West Jerusalem and taking control of several strategic positions. But by June 7th, Israeli forces broke through, capturing the old city of Jerusalem, including the Western Wall, a site sacred to Jews around the world. The capture of Jerusalem was not only a military victory, but a highly symbolic one for Israel. Meanwhile, on the northern front, Syrian forces were shelling Israeli villages from the Golan Heights. On June 9th, Israel launched an all-out assault on the Golan. Despite the challenging terrain, Israeli forces managed to capture the Golan Heights within 48 hours, securing a critical strategic advantage. By June 10th, the war was over. In just 6 days, Israel had achieved a stunning victory, more than tripling the size of the territory under its control. While Israel's success was driven by meticulous planning, intelligence, and military precision, the Arab coalition's failure can largely be attributed to miscommunication, a lack of coordination, and overconfidence. The Arab armies, though larger in number, were poorly coordinated. Nasser's bold rhetoric of uniting the Arab world against Israel never materialized on the battlefield. The Egyptian, Syrian, and Jordanian forces each fought their own separate wars with little or no real communication between them. Egypt, believing its own propaganda that claimed initial victory, sent misleading reports to its allies, creating confusion and chaos. On June 5th, King Hussein of Jordan was told by Nasser that the Egyptian Air Force had successfully repelled the Israeli strikes, when in fact Egypt's Air Force had been obliterated. As a result, Jordan entered the war, and within days it had lost the West Bank and East Jerusalem to Israel. Syria, meanwhile, hesitated to commit its full forces. Though they shelled northern Israeli towns from the Golan Heights, they failed to mount a significant offensive. By the time Israel turned its focus to the Golan, Syrian forces were in disarray and quickly lost the strategic high ground. Ultimately, the Arab alliance's lack of cohesive strategy and mutual distrust among leaders sealed their defeat. In contrast, Israel's leadership, under the command of Chief of Staff Yitzhak Rabin and Defense Minister Moshe Dayan, displayed remarkable unity, executing a clear, decisive plan to neutralize the Arab threat on all fronts. The Six-Day War left the Arab nations humiliated and their armies in shambles. Egypt lost the Sinai Peninsula, Jordan lost the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and Syria lost the Golan Heights. Israel's territorial gains were significant, more than tripling its size, and these new borders would become the flashpoints for future conflicts in the region. So what did the world learn from this lightning-fast war? For Israel, the lessons were clear. Victory had come through superior planning, swift decision-making, and the element of surprise. Israel's intelligence network had provided them with critical information about Arab military movements, and their preemptive airstrikes had neutralized the greatest threat. But for the Arab nations, the defeat was catastrophic. Their failure to coordinate effectively and their overestimation of their military strength exposed deep weaknesses. The psychological blow was immense, leaving the Arab world humiliated and more determined than ever to regain lost territory. The war left the region more divided than ever, with Israel controlling the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. These territorial gains would sow the seeds for future conflicts and remain at the heart of the Arab-Israeli conflict to this day.
The Six-Day War was a turning point in the Middle East. It reshaped the political and territorial landscape of the region and has influenced the dynamics of Arab-Israeli relations ever since. As we reflect on this war, we are reminded of the complexity of conflict and the fragile nature of peace in this volatile region. Thank you for watching Tales of History. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the past and learned something new about the events that shaped our world. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others who love history as much as we do. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future episodes. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating stories of history with us. And remember, history isn't just the past. It's the key to understanding our present and shaping our future.